Sterling Academy was the type of school that sent its students into the world with high expectations, where privilege and power seemed to dictate who belonged. It was a place where reputations were built on wealth, connections, and the right bloodlines. But that day, on that very ordinary afternoon, all eyes in the school were on one student, and it wasn't the golden boy of the school. It was Zara Tate, a girl who had no time for nonsense and didn't quite fit the mold of the school's elite. She had always kept to herself, not because she couldn't stand her classmates, but because she didn't feel the need to prove herself to anyone. That was until she was forced to. Zara turned the corner of the hallway, her mind already in gear for the upcoming AP Calculus test that she had to pass with flying colors. She had bigger things on her mind than the usual high school drama. However, the universe had other plans. Standing in front of her, blocking her path like some arrogant antagonist in a bad movie, was none other than Dec Allen Wheeler. He was the epitome of everything that made Sterling Academy a nightmare for kids who didn't fit the right profile. At 6 feet 1 inch with blonde hair and a body built like a linebacker, Dec had a reputation that overshadowed most of his peers. He was known for his money, his power, and his ability to belittle anyone who didn't measure up. Today, he had chosen Zara as his target. Before Dec could even open his mouth to say anything, Zara already knew what was coming. She had seen this play out countless times before. With his usual smug grin, Dec leaned against the lockers, looking down at her as though she were some sort of bug he could squash. "Lost, are we? You sure you're in the right place?" he asked, his voice dripping with disdain. A few students stopped, some slowing their steps to witness what they all knew would happen next, but no one dared to intervene. That was the unwritten rule of Sterling Academy. When Dec targeted someone, you stayed out of it. Zara gripped the strap of her backpack, her fingers tightening around it, but she didn't let it show that she was bothered. She had dealt with his comments before, tried to ignore his taunts, but today felt different. She was tired of playing nice. She wasn't here to be his punching bag. "Move, Dec. I don't have time for your nonsense today," Zara said, her voice firm, clear, and unwavering. Dec's grin only widened, his eyes narrowing as he took a step closer to her. "Is that how you talk to me, little girl? You don't belong here, Tate. This school isn't for someone like you." He shoved her away with a swift motion, clearly trying to assert his dominance. Zara stumbled slightly, but quickly regained her balance. The push had been more than just physical, it was a statement. A challenge. And it was a huge mistake. The group of students around them held their collective breath, the tension in the air palpable. Phones came out, ready to capture the spectacle. This wasn't just bullying. It was a performance, and Dec was playing the villain. Zara locked eyes with him, her voice calm, almost eerily so. "You really don't want to do this," she said, her words like ice. Dec laughed mockingly, his arrogance ringing in his voice. "What? Are you going to cry to the teacher? Come on, little girl. This isn't your place." He pushed her again, this time with more force, but Zara didn't flinch. Instead, she exhaled slowly, her eyes never leaving his. "Okay," she said, her voice steady. "You asked for it." Without another word, Zara dropped her backpack to the ground, and before Dec could react, she had already caught his arm in one swift movement, twisting it behind his back and using his own momentum to throw him over her shoulder. Dec hit the marble floor with such a loud crash that the entire hallway fell silent, the sound echoing through the building like a bomb going off. For the first time in his life, Dec Allen Wheeler had been brought down from his pedestal. He lay there on the floor, stunned, his pride shattered, staring up at the ceiling. For a moment, no one moved. Then, chaos erupted. The crowd around them screamed, some in disbelief, others in shock. But there was no mistaking the sound of Zara's triumph. Laughter and applause filled the hallway, and Zara casually stepped over Dec as if he were nothing more than a piece of trash. "Told you so," she said, her voice still calm and collected, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. The crowd went wild. Phones were recording, people were cheering, and someone shouted, "World Star," as Dec groaned, rolling onto his side, his face bright red with humiliation. His fists clenched, but the damage had been done. It wasn't just a physical defeat, it was an emotional one. Zara had taken him down in front of everyone, and now, his once untouchable reputation was in tatters. By lunchtime, The entire school was buzzing with the news. Zara's move had gone viral, spreading across social media like wildfire. I didn't know Zara could fight like that. She's a real ninja, was all anyone could talk about. Even students who had never spoken to Zara before were suddenly wanting to sit with her, asking about her martial arts training and how she had pulled off such an amazing move. But not everyone was pleased. Dek, still seething with rage, was determined to get revenge. His humiliation wasn't something he would let slide. The next morning, Sterling Academy had completely shifted. The video of Zara's takedown had exploded across Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. The rich, privileged kid had been destroyed by a black girl. And now, Dek Wheeler was the laughingstock of the school. But Dek wasn't about to let it end like this. No, he wasn't going to let Zara's actions define him. He would make her regret the day she embarrassed him. He began to plot, scheming in the shadows. He couldn't afford to be a joke. He had built his reputation on fear, and now, that fear had turned to mockery. There was only one way to fix it: make Zara Tate pay. Zara, on the other hand, was not intimidated. She could feel the whispers around her. People were looking at her differently, some with admiration, others with fear. By noon, Dek's usual group of followers had become silent when Zara entered the room. But Zara didn't notice. She was too busy answering questions about her training and the recent takedown. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Meet me in the gym after school. No cameras. Let's get this done." Zara didn't hesitate. She wasn't scared of Dek or his cronies. But maybe she should have been. The Sterling Academy gym was a massive, imposing space, with high ceilings and polished floors that gleamed like a battlefield. When Zara stepped into the gym after school, she immediately felt the weight of being watched. The door slammed shut behind her, and the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. She wasn't alone. "I made a mistake coming here, Tate," Dek's voice echoed through the room. Zara turned to face him. Behind Dek stood his loyal followers Hunter, Mason, and Tyler, all large and imposing, ready to back him up. They were his enforcers, his dogs. But Zara wasn't intimidated. "You must be really scared of me," she said dryly. "Is this what it's come to?" Dek's face twisted with anger. "Shut up," he spat, stepping forward. "It's not fear," he snarled. "It's respect." Zara raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Respect? No, Dek, this is about revenge." Dek lunged at her, throwing an uncontrolled punch, but Zara sidestepped it easily. "Amateur," she muttered. Hunter moved in, but Zara ducked, lifting his legs off the ground and sending him crashing to the floor. Tyler tried to wrap his arms around her, but she elbowed him in the ribs, sending him staggering back. Then, with a lightning-fast spin, Zara kicked Hunter hard in the chest. He went flying to the ground. All three of them were down. But Dek wasn't finished. His fury boiled over as he charged at Zara, throwing wild punches, desperate to regain control. But Zara was a blur of movement, dodging every punch with ease. Then, with a swift, powerful kick to his stomach, she sent Dek stumbling backward. He gasped for air, his chest heaving. Zara wasn't done. She lunged forward, grabbed Dek's collar, and threw him to the gym floor with a force that shook the room. Dek lay there, stunned and groaning. Zara leaned over him, her voice low and menacing. "Don't you ever touch me again." The gym was silent. The three men lay on the floor, defeated, humiliated. And the next morning, Sterling Academy had a new queen. Dek Wheeler was no longer the feared bully. Zara Tate had taken his throne. The whispers around the school weren't about Zara anymore. They were about the consequences of crossing her. Dek had learned that the hard way. Some people weren't meant to be messed with. Zara Tate was a force to be reckoned with, and she would not be disrespected again.